I would just like to remind you that we have the coffee tea break now, which will be over in 3 minutes. And then after that, there will be the parallel session 1, theme 7, adaptation policies, legislation and regulations in conference room 4 on the first floor. Lunch at 12:30, as it was yesterday, downstairs on the ground floor. And at 5 o'clock, the closing plenary session with a lovely surprise to send you all on your collective ways. Thank you once again.
Mainstreaming adaptation. Actually, the reasons are rather clear. We know that climate change is happening. We know that we have to take actions, especially if you take actions in advance, that it will reduce the losses or mitigate losses tremendously in the future. However, we have lots of challenges in doing that. If you recall yesterday's keynote lecture by the Vice President of ADB, highlighted some of the challenges. At the global scale, we have an idea of the climate change, its trends and impacts, but as she has pointed out, at the local scale, the detailed information is lacking and uncertain, which makes it very difficult to take local actions. And this means that we have to increase the scientific capacity not only at the global level, but at national and provincial levels. And this also calls for tremendous demands in capacity development. And more importantly, we also heard over and over that adaptation is a very much a local issue, which means that we have to find long-term solutions which have to evolve locally, and that requires to take into consideration the local biophysical social conditions, and also we need large amount of human resources and institutional capacities, not only at the national level, but also at the local level. So the questions are that how do we address these capacity needs? What are the proven methodologies, the experiences that we have, and how we can utilize them and move forward? So today we have a very distinguished panel to address these issues and to share with us their experiences. So without further delay, we would start immediately. And first, before we begin, we would introduce the panel very briefly. My name is Srikanta Herath. I'm from the United Nations University's Institute for Sustainability and Peace, where I work as a senior academic program officer. And I'm also coordinating a university network, which is called University Network on Climate and Ecosystems Adaptation Research, or UNCISA, which are working together for developing education and research programs for adaptation. And we will go along the table, and Ali, could you introduce?
My name is Ali Sheikh, and I am CEO of LEAD in Pakistan. And here I'm wearing another hat, that is Director for Asia for CDKN. It's a project that covers Asia, several countries in Asia, and there'll be more detailed presentation on CDKN after lunch in side event 2.
Morning, I'm Nong Rangasa. I'm the Executive Director of Center for Initiative and Research on Climate Adaptation, Provincial Government of Albay, also the Project Manager of the Joint Program MDGF 1656 Albay Demo.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Peter Hazelwood. I'm with the World Resources Institute. I'm Director of Ecosystems and Development at WRI. In my most recent incarnation, I was at UNDP, and the only reason I mention that was working on a global program between UNDP and UNEP called the Poverty and Environment Initiative, which had mainstreaming, that god-awful term, as its core focus.
Good morning. My name is Raman Lachumanan. I'm head of the Environment Division of the ASEAN Secretariat. I've been there quite some time, almost 10 years. But before that, I was in Malaysia as the Director for the Environment Division of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, as it was known then. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Wilfredo Uy. I'm the Director of the Institute of Fisheries Research and Development of the Mindanao State University. This is in the Philippines. My interest is on coastal ecosystem and also on coastal resource management, working closely with the community. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So we are seated on the order of the names which are appearing on the screen. However, the presentations will be in a different order. First of all, we would have our provocateur, Ali, to give us the focus and the questions so that we could start our deliberations. Ali, please.
Everyone. I may not be able to provoke, but I do wish to raise some probing questions, and four my colleagues have guided me to share with you. First challenge is the communication challenge. The climate change issue is framed as a scientific question. The abstruse terminology, 1.5 degree increase or 2 degree increase, does not mean much for most of the world. It's more complex terminology that has created a barrier. For a common man, it is, or common citizen, individual, perhaps it is like shower temperature that you can increase a degree or two and reduce. And therefore, I think the first challenge in communication is how to articulate, how to communicate. For most people, it's a question about water security. It's a question about agriculture, about food security. It's a question about energy security. It's a question about disasters, their periodicity, ferocity, and occurrence. It's a question about health, the relationship between health and climate change. And it's a question about migration that is likely to result in several regions of the world because of climate change. And then it's a question about ecosystem health. Now, these are 7 key areas a common man, a common individual, a politician, a researcher, a media analyst, an anchor person is supposed to relate to. And how do we begin doing this? Second question that comes to my mind, at least. The research and the scientific community is supposed to guide and inform the policymaker. The policymaker needs to respond to what is happening on the ground. What is the learning at the community level? And how does that learning or experience percolate up? In real life, we see that this triangle between the science, policymaker, and the community is a broken triangle. All three seem to work more often than not in more autonomous terms or in parallel fashions. Can we fix this broken triangle? Can the science and research inform policymaker? Can the policymaking be a bit more evidence-based than we see it in most parts of the world? And since our understanding at the scientific level is perhaps better in larger time frame, as the modeling would tell us, than in the shorter time frame. As our understanding is limited in the local, at the local level, at a locale specific context, then can there be better informed mechanisms, speedier mechanisms, efficient mechanisms to learn from the communities and inform the policymakers and even influence the scientific agenda? So that's the second set of issues or questions that come to my mind, at least. If indeed we need to learn from the communities what is happening in terms of autonomous adaptation, then can we learn how to nurture and promote and work with local leadership? There may be a huge big void as a result of a disempowering process or processes that we may have followed in several societies, whereby the local communities and leaders or leaderships are disempowered or marginalized, or they have very little role to play in undertaking and initiating local planning, implementing, monitoring, evaluation, and researching and guiding research. So it's a question of how do we strengthen local leadership? And first and foremost in this category that comes to my mind is specifically leadership at the local government level, who may have modest resources, several demands, very limited capacities, very skewed decision-making systems and structures, nevertheless charged with immense amount of responsibility to manage water resources, food, human development, and improving human development index, and so on and so forth. So key challenge here, I think, is how do we encourage local planning by nurturing local leadership? And my fourth and final question within the time frame that I have, and question is perhaps more of a challenge. Many people sitting in this room and beyond have worked on numerous initiatives and projects. There's immense amount of learning and reflection that can be shared. But very often, our pilot programs, our projects stay exactly that, pilots and local projects. The challenge is how to upscale them, how to replicate them, how to mainstream them. The learning that has happened over decades in the development sector is critically important for us to see how do we bring this learning that all of us have in our own context, in different fields and disciplines, in different sectors. The 7 sectors that I mentioned earlier about water, food, energy, disasters, ecosystems, health. How do we mainstream that learning and how to upscale by universalizing to the extent that we can, by being respectful for the local conditions and realities. Now, these are 5 sets of questions that I wanted us to leave this room with. I do not wish to be very pretentious that my colleagues sitting at the rostrum would have yes, no answers. That's not the purpose of this exercise. However, I do wish to conclude on one small as local actions begin to, and local knowledge begins to guide us. Question is, how do we enhance regional collaboration, regional understanding, and regional initiatives? Sitting in a forum like this, that's a unique dimension that we need to spend a little bit of time deliberating on that. With these a few thoughts, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Ali, for these very thought-provoking points you have raised. Just to summarize, that number 1 was on communication. How do you relate climate change